Hey everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where on this week's episode we will be talking about this past weekend's episode, To Change a Changeling. So if this is your first time joining us here on Tripoli, we're just going to discuss the new episode, give our thoughts, opinions on it between everyone, and discuss how everyone feels about the episode, and we'll start kind of a little bit more broad in it, and go into more specifics as we go on in the show, starting with the story and the characters, and then going into some more specific things like the humor specifically as the show goes on. If you're watching a recording on this, we do record this live on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you do want to join in the discussion, or if you want to make your opinions known about whatever episodes, make sure to join us for as we record this live, and you can participate in the chat. Or if you're watching this live, but not on the site, or not in the chat, and you want to access the chat, head over to CinemaQuestria.com/stream, and you'll be able to watch the stream and open up our Discord chat from there as well, and join in the discussion there. With that, we do have a few people on the call here that will be participating in the voice chat here. I'm Rain Shadow.
Hey guys, it's Mr. Ben.
This is Jay Smith.
And yeah, so To Change a Changeling, what was everyone's initial thoughts on the episode?
Kind of was expecting a little more in a way. Don't get me wrong, I liked the episode for what it was. It's just that I kind of feel that they may have potentially wasted a little bit of potential, because I remember back in an earlier episode, Thorax said that there was an entire group of rogue changelings, and here we don't even really see an entire group, we just see one.
They did mention it, though.
Yeah, actually, Thorax mentioned that he already reformed all the changelings off cameras.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay. I mean, it's just that, that they reformed all of them off camera, or, aside from just the single one, it's like,
I thought that was going to be a build-up for a future episode. Everybody was expecting that would probably be finale material, but
I mean, I'm not really complaining. I mean, because like I said, we having it just limited to one person does make it a little bit more intimate and a little bit more straightforward. But I thought it would have probably been a little bit more engaging if Thorax really would have had to have take on like an entire group of rogue changelings. That's just my only real main complaint about it. That's really about it.
I mean, I think I understand why this kind of episode would be probably a little bit better story-wise, is that just having it focused just on him dealing with one other changeling allows them to build that character, build that character development, and build that personal connection that he has with that one rogue changeling, where if you would have had a group of them, it would have been, unless they're having some sort of epic battle, it would have been harder to do that more character side of that development that they were really trying to go for in the show. So I think it's kind of like one of those things where I think that they probably went with the better option in terms of actually wanting to focus more on the character development versus just trying to like have him have some battle with a bunch of rogue changelings or something like that, which I think this probably fits more in with the show, the show's overall overarching message, rather than having to if you're going to do a character focused episode and trying to focus on multiple rogue changelings. It was probably just easier for them to kind of narrow it down to one. For me personally, I enjoyed the episode. It's some things are starting to feel a little samey with the Starlight episodes, but I think overall as an episode, like individual episode, it was enjoyable, and it was nice seeing Starlight and Trixie and Thorax and kind of her group of friends again in it. It had a good message with it. and was a fun episode, I guess, to watch. Nothing spectacular, I guess, but it was still an enjoyable episode, even if I have a few qualms with it. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like Klaatu was saying, if they were going to actually have him turn. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but if they were going to actually have him turn out to be, because it seemed for a while that they were actually going with maybe just kind of a lesson that maybe some people just aren't ready or don't want to change in their ways, and you can't really force them to. And I think that would have been another interesting message that they could have done, and just had him maybe not come back and not transform and not really accept the hive. Because, I mean, that's realistic, important message that you could also get along, and without, making him evil or demoralizing him. I mean, still showing his side, but maybe just going to the point that maybe not everyone's ready. And instead, they seemed like they were going that way for a little bit when Trixie was like, or not Trixie, when Starlight was talking to Trixie about, well, maybe he's just kind of a lost cause and stuff. And instead, unsurprisingly, they went with the whole friendship route. I mean, that's what this show does. But I thought it kind of seemed for a while like they might not have done that. So moving on into the episode here with the story and the writing. This episode was written by Kevin Lappin, who is a new writer for this season. This is his second episode that he has written this season, the first one being Honest Apple a little earlier in the season there. Yeah, exactly, DMTO. That's kind of what I was thinking. It wasn't so much I was expecting them to do that going into the episode, but when we got to that point of the episode where they were kind of going, it seemed like they were going down that route, and then they kind of whiplashed back. So what does everyone think of the story and the writing for the episode? I guess I'll start by saying, again, more continuity this season, and not just kind of character continuity, but also situational continuity. With this episode having obviously a lot of continuity with Trixie and Starlight and Thorax and all the events of last season and last season's finale, of course, and kind of building and expanding upon it. It's not just making a reference that, an episode that references it, but actually expanding upon what has happened in past episodes and progressing an actual timeline with these characters was of course really cool to see, and something that this season has been really good at doing. And of course, this was a direct, not only just that, but also a kind of a direct piece of continuity from a past episode, Triple Threat, where we were introduced by Thorax that there's these rogue changelings, that he's having some problems with kind of getting on in the new hive side and understanding what the new hive is. And this is the episode that kind of did that. So it was a nice little bit of foreshadowing in that past episode to this one, which was cool. I'll be right back if you want to continue talking for a minute.
Okay. Like I said, I mean, it's nice that we get some interaction between Starlight and Trixie. Personally, I feel that it would have been nice if Spike maybe perhaps tagged along as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice that we for once actually get an episode that we don't get any of the main cast. We are any really of the main supporting characters. So this is basically just an entire episode that's the main characters, the main driving forces between this particular episode is Starlight, Trixie, Thorax, and their interactions and conflicts with Vernix. And to actually have something like this is pretty much a first for the series, because we've not only had no interaction between the the main cast and bringing in voice actors from any of the main cast as well, but we don't have anybody that has any real connection to the main cast outside of Starlight herself. So this whole episode is completely standalone, aside from the fact that it's basically linked to Triple Threat from Thorax's line from that particular episode. And yeah, it's nice to see that even though that they're good friends, Starlight and Trixie are basically just taking pot shots at each other by sniping at each other and snarking and all that. Trixie constantly throwing Starlight under the bus, among other things.
Sorry about that.
That's convenient. Ben just finished talking right when he came back in.
Perfect timing. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice seeing another Starlight and Trixie, and like also Thorax episode, and seeing the group continue to get episodes together again, sort of like a alternate main six here. I will say I'm still very, very disappointed by the lack of a Sunburst involved episode with Starlight. It seems if there's one thing the past 2 seasons that I think they've really dropped the ball on, it is just not knowing what to do with Sunburst, I guess. We see him sort of make small appearances in a few episodes, like cameo appearances, but he really hasn't done much. He hasn't had an episode where he's been involved in, or where Starlight's involved with something with him, other than like Twilight's crazy fantasy from the beginning of the season of it, and it's kind of disappointing that in 2 seasons so far we haven't really gotten an episode, being that he was sort of Starlight's first friend, and they made up, and he was kind of her first post-Reformation friend, like that she got along with, even before Trixie. And I guess it's still really disappointing to me that we haven't seen him at all, and continue to not see him at all. I love Starlight and Trixie and how they play off each other, but I am still really disappointed about that. I mean, I was expecting him to be part of their crew in the season 6 finale, and that didn't happen. Yeah, it's really nice seeing sort of again, that continuation of the previous story. We knew that the changelings have been changed, and Chrysalis defeated, and they're trying to change their ways and what they do. So it was nice seeing a continuation of that in this episode, and sort of seeing what they've been doing now, and how their hive has been changing since what happened in the season 6 finale. It's a nice little bit of continuity, and it's not something we've gotten a lot for some of these past changes. Like, we got a lot of stuff with Starlight, and we're seeing a lot of these stuff with the changelings, but we haven't seen Diamond Tiara since she was sort of changed in this season 5 episode, all the way back in season 5, which is, I think, another kind of missed opportunity. I'd love to see sort of what she's doing and how she's acting now, because we haven't really seen that at all in the show. So it is nice to see these kind of continuity, these kind of continual stories, character stories, not just with individual characters, but also groups of characters like the Hive there. I think there's plenty of storyline they can explore Sunburst. I mean, it wouldn't be any different than having episodes with Starlight and Trixie involved. I mean, there's really no storyline there to continue between them. It's just additional character interaction and showing how their friendship is growing, etc. They could do a similar thing with Sunburst as well. Having, Starlight. It just seems odd that we never see Starlight hanging out with them anymore. Not to mention with his knowledge of magic and stuff, how he could be a big help in some situations with Starlight. And I think that was one of the interesting things that I liked about the overall story of the episode is sort of the conflict that was involved. Because like we've been mentioning in chat here, seeing how Thorax has helped the Hive and helped to change the Hive and make it a much nicer and friendlier and happier place with all these activities and stuff. But then the episode also shows us some like the negatives about this. That Thorax is obviously still learning to be more assertive. He's always been more of a kind of a featherweight in terms of his personality, and he's kind of imparting that onto the rest of the Hive here. And so it was nice seeing the other side with Pharynx here actually having this legitimate concern that they're becoming too weak and that they are susceptible to attack or invasion, etc., because they've adopted all these new things and they've gone to the other end of the spectrum. And it was a nice little bit of conflict that they set up, that it wasn't like Pharynx was completely evil or anything like that. He just did have actual legitimate concerns with how Thorax was changing the Hive. But I did like how this episode pretty much like directly mentions also Ember helping Thorax become more assertive. Again, having that direct episode-to-episode continuity that we've seen in this season, and having that directly affect some things in this episode as well. And that, for the most part, it worked. We did learn that Thorax was able to convince most of the changelings of kind of their new style that they have going on in the Hive here, of course with the exception of his brother. But it was nice seeing him continuing to work on that, and that episode actually did have actual impact on his character and how he acts in this episode as well. Yep, exactly, DM. Just going pretty much to the other end of the spectrum here. Yeah, your typical brotherly, you're not allowed to pick on my brother, only I can pick on my brother. It's also interesting, another little tiny blurb that we are informed about at the beginning really quick is Thorax has actually been writing letters to Starlight, more or less, been in communication about him, because they do know about his problems that he's been having with the Changing Hive, but they don't mention that it's because of his visit with Spike, but they mention that it's because he's actually writing letters to Starlight, keeping her informed of how things are going there. Yeah, I just think it's the color. it's like little tiny bug toys. Now kiss. it was nice to see, both in terms of what we heard about in Triple Threat and also in this episode, that not all the changelings were immediately accepted to the change. I know some people didn't like that about the season six finale, that they were just like, oh, okay. All of them were like, oh, okay, let's do this now. But I think it was reasonable that most of them were receptive to that, being that they saw the power that Thorax was able to possess by not absorbing love, but kind of the opposite there that he was able to do. They were able to kind of view that firsthand, which makes sense. I guess it's kind of interesting to think about was Pharynx present during that whole battle and whatnot in the Changeling Hive or not in the season 6 finale. Kind of raises some questions about whether or not he was actually present there. Because I'm pretty sure all the changelings we saw there transformed. Well, I wouldn't say they didn't. I mean, they did band together to try and defeat the Morwolf by sheer force, but it kind of wasn't working. So the two brothers sort of had to resort to some more cerebral tactics that based on how they acted as kids. But they did show the changelings sort of coming together at the end there to support Pharynx in the end. Could have been Ponyville, could have been somewhere else in the hive, I guess. I don't know if all the changelings were in that room. I mean, obviously we know that there were multiple changelings that didn't want to adapt to the change, yet in that scene, I think pretty much all the changelings do transform, so I'm assuming maybe there's some other changelings out on patrol elsewhere in the hive, etc., that didn't see that and might have taken them longer to sort of get the gist of what went down. I mean, I think all the changelings that were there saw firsthand of what Thorax was able to do with his new power, and kind of gave up and consuming love and transformed there because of that, whereas maybe some of the changelings, including his brother, who didn't witness that firsthand, had to kind of have stuff explained to them a little bit more, or have Thorax talk with them about sort of what was happening after the fact. Yeah, I believe I forget what they called him. He didn't actually call him at one point. He didn't call him his brother. He called him his broodmate or something like that. I forget. I'm not sure what the exact word was that he used. But I'm assuming that it's not that they're obviously all, insects and related in some way. But I think it has to do with he grew up in the same brood or whatever with him, or same pod. I'm not sure how bug mating works, but I think that's more what they were referring to versus actual human brother and sister sort of stuff. Yeah, broodmate, okay. Yeah, I guess, it's kind of an intentional play on words there, yeah. Obviously kind of a play on roommate there. He has a similar meaning, I guess. It was nice to see them sort of explain this and use all these bug kind of terminologies and how bugs work in real life to sort of explain some of that. Episode definitely had some interesting sort of parts in it and lessons and life lessons in it. Sort of has like these subtle lessons about being prepared for the worst and not letting your guard down. You know, always sort of evil or dangerous things out there that we still have to protect ourselves against, no matter how peaceful we try to be. And that's sort of what the Hive was becoming under Thorax. Is he was trying to make them very, obviously very peaceful, and this feelings for him and stuff, that they can have good communication with each other and be a happy and nice place, which is great and all, but kind of failed, and the changelings, following him, sort of failed to realize that there's still external threats that don't feel the same way about that, whether that be different animal or beast or changeling, external threats that they might have. So that's sort of where Pharynx comes in, sort of the other yin to that yang to that point, about trying to get them to still be that. So he obviously has a lot of reservations about the change besides that, but I think it's shown in the episode and in the end that his number one concern is just that the Hive is not going to be able to protect itself anymore, given the new change of feelings that they have now. So it's definitely a kind of an interesting subject to tackle in the episode. I think they do it really well, and I like that they didn't really make Pharynx the villain at any point in the episode. He's definitely shown to be very negative at times and doesn't really get across his points in the best way possible, but his concerns are shown to be valid, especially in the end, because he's just presenting them in a bad way. And yeah, it was great in the end to actually that they had the changelings actually directly admit that they were wrong in this situation and wrong about Pharynx as well, and that they really do need to defend themselves, which they were able to see directly by the Mulwerf that was coming in, and which is of course what Pharynx was concerned about the entire time. And of course, on the other end of the coin, they're having Pharynx, even though he seemingly wants nothing to do with the Hive and nothing to do with the changes, still act there actively, just still trying to defend it, showing that he still does, in deep down, still care about the Hive as well. I just do like what they did with Pharynx, and I like that he was he was made to be he wasn't made out to be evil in the episode or wrong or anything like that. He was very antagonistic at times, but at the same time, he was actually kind of right in his points. And I like episodes that do that with antagonists or seeming antagonists in the episode. In the end, it was really the Hive and Thorax himself that were wrong, and they really did need to maybe listen to Pharynx, even if he was not saying what he was trying to say in the best way. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that seemed to have solved them. And of course, there is one thing I do take issue with this, and it's not really with the episode itself. It's more in terms of the overall kind of picture here. The episode here does have kind of Starlight once again sort of not thinking through her plan and just sort of acting on it, and of course it doesn't really go right. I think it's becoming a little too common in some of her episodes here about it. It's not really a huge problem in this episode directly. I think the episode deals with it nice and sort of what she's trying to do and her worries and concerns, and also sort of not seeing Pharynx's sort of concerns and problems, because he's not really voicing his problems correctly in the episode. But I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of Starlight episodes now that are sort of running into a similar thing with how Spike episodes were back in earlier seasons of the show, where I don't think most of them weren't bad episodes individually, and were very enjoyable episodes individually. But when you kind of look at them as a whole and sort of what they're doing with Spike as a character back then, I can understand concerns people had in terms of him not being competent or always being shown to mess up, and never being really good at good at anything. And while individual episodes dealt with him facing a problem, maybe not dealing with it correctly and learning a lesson from it individually, it was that happening over and over again that I think got on some people's nerves. And you finally get some episodes in later seasons here, like Gauntlet of Fire, where he breaks out of that mold and sort of is able to be competent and in charge of a situation. But I see a similar thing starting to happen with Starlight, where there's just so many episodes now that when we finally get an episode that focuses on Starlight, she does something sort of recklessly without thinking, or uses magic without thinking, and sort of messes something up. And a lot of times it'll just come out and work itself out in the end. But this is something we saw it, of course, last season in the episode where I forget the episode name, but the one where she kind of put the main six all under the spell in that episode. And of course, earlier this season we saw it in All Bottled Up when she did the same another thing like that, and we see it again in this episode. I don't know. It's not like any of these episodes are bad by any means possible. It's just I really do hope that we kind of get some Starlight episodes and Starlight Trixie episodes that have a little bit more variety in sort of what happens to it. Because we have seen episodes like that before, like obviously like you said the season 6 finale, but even then it's sort of like a lot of the stuff there is just kind of reacting to stuff, and yeah, I don't know. It's just I feel like, especially with these individual episodes that we're getting, they're all starting to feel a little bit samey in that. Yeah. I'd love to have more episodes with Starlight and Trixie and Come On Sunburst, where they're presented with a situation or an antagonist or some sort of bad situation that they need to fix, and it isn't they don't just completely kind of screw it up or do something else, or in like case of like All Bottled Up, actually sort of make the situation themselves. Because of course All Bottled Up Starlight kind of made the whole negative situation in that episode herself. Same with the one where she hypnotized all the main six. She kind of made that whole problem herself. Here in this episode, she didn't make the problem, but then she kind of made it worse. Made like a new problem. So it's like, again, it's not bad right now, and it's not, none of these episodes are bad individually. I would like to see some more variety. I'd like to see more episodes with Starlight going out and actively working against a problem rather than just being, continuing to be impulsive in what she's doing and not, thinking things through. I know it's kind of a character trait of hers, but I'd like to see her grow with that, not just keep doing this over and over and over again. I'd like to see her work on improving that character defect that she has. I guess that's the TLDR. I hope that in future episodes they improve upon her character defect of acting erratically without thinking. TLDR. There we go. That's the point I was trying to get to into words. That was really the only negative thing I could say about the episode, really. And it wasn't really about it individually, again, just overarching. See, that would be an awesome episode. Like, have Starlight, Sunburst, and Trixie go out and solve a problem and work together in solving the problem, using all of their strengths to do it. Starlight's really, really good with magic. Sunburst is really, really knowledgeable about magic. Let's use that for an episode instead of just having Starlight impulsively do magic and having issues come out of it. Good news is there's still a lot of potential for this group of characters and Starlight in particular going forward. So I just hope they can take advantage of that in her episodes. Any other comments about the story or the writing of the episode that anyone wants to make before we move on? Okay, we'll go on to the character discussion and the characters and the characterization. How did everyone think that they handled the characters in the episode?
I liked how they had Pharynix kind of be like he was. Yeah, he was kind of had a bit of a problem, expressing his opinions and getting his feelings across. But it really doesn't help that was pretty much all he knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of his personality as well. He was very much the one of the warrior, the fighters of the changelings there, and definitely had some issues adjusting with Thorax's new lovey-dovey kind of environment that he was setting up. Yeah, I just want to say that Trixie and Starlight continue to play off each other so well, and it continues to be incredibly enjoyable. I just really love these episodes with the two of them. I mean, I am disappointed that we don't have Sunburst in here, but I'm glad we're at least getting more Trixie and Starlight episodes because I think they play off each other really well, and in a very fun way. It's just it's a fun way that you really don't see the main six play off that way the same way. a lot, especially anymore. So it's a really fun sort of way that they bounce off each other's stuff there. Sometimes kind of being tongue in cheek, a little mean to each other, and kind of playful towards each other and how they act. And they're still very much themselves, especially Trixie, obviously, even though she's working hard to be a better pony and stuff. She obviously is still, in a lot of ways, the same old Trixie, and we see it still annoys Starlight, just like we saw in All Bottled Up as well. I think one of the cool things is sort of we get to see Starlight obviously still annoyed by it, but I think she's found better ways of sort of dealing with Trixie's annoyances. Like at one point she just kind of rolls her eyes and walks away from her instead of bottling up any sort of anger or worrying that something she would say or do might might insult her or ruin their friendship or stuff. They've already worked past this, and so they can now both kind of joke each other and know that, hey, this is what they like about each other, and kind of just roll with it.
I don't want to get into humor just yet, but I just remember that one part where Starlight's is talking with Pharynix with Trixie, and Starlight's like, but for now Trixie's settled for being second best, and like Trixie's eyes just kind of like go, that like, the hell you just said.
But I think Raider Dog, that's kind of the problem I have, is we don't know what's up with Sunburst. We don't know what he's doing or what he's busy with. He's just kind of fallen off the face of the show for the most part. And he seemed so important back in the beginning of season 6. He was like the key. He was Starlight's first friend, and the whole season 6 premiere revolved around him sort of trying to fit in and find his place, and Starlight finding, helping him and them helping each other out. It just seemed weird to me that he would just sort of drop off the show, with the exception of a few cameo appearances here and there. I don't know. I really liked Sunburst, so maybe it's just me. And yeah, I mean, just with Trixie, just continue to see her playing a bigger part in the show, and it's something that I would have never expected the show to have done a couple years ago. Where she has sort of a one-shot episode back in season 2, and then or season 1, and then sort of comes back in season 3 for that other episode where she's sort of pseudo-reformed and then just kind of disappears off the show for a while, and then of course comes back as Starlight's sort of new friend that she's made. And I mean, again, it's kind of a funny situation just in that aspect, but then they've actually kind of taken her and really ingrained her with Starlight and the show, and she's appearing on a lot of episodes now, and it's really enjoyable and really fits in with those episodes and fits in with Starlight. It's something I would have just never expected her to do, but it worked out really well. Yep, I agree with that, Clutchy. Trixie doesn't have to change her base personality to become a better pony. Exactly, just the same as Discord. I guess, we never know, I guess, Klaatu. Anything's possible at this point. I think it's kind of a missed opportunity to introduce interesting character like that, and it just we've seen it more in the comics, which is cool, but and like I mentioned in the story, I'm really enjoying Thorax's character as well. It's really nice to see this continued character development for him on the assertiveness front this season over the past couple of episodes. It's sort of how he's developing into a leader, and then developing into a better leader here. It's just something that I think is kind of new to the show, more or less, over the past couple of seasons. It's especially outside of the main 6. to have these sort of continued character arcs like this over multiple episodes, rather than just having a character of the day appear in an episode and maybe grow in that episode and you never see them again. Here, in addition to just the main six, we got all these arcs for Trixie and for Starlight and Thorax, and as well as like the Changing Kingdom and other things like that. And it's nice to see this more better flow in between episodes. I mean, we started to see a lot more continuity starting in season 5, calling back to previous episodes, but now we're getting like some really good continuity in between episodes. So while the episodes themselves are still very much individual episodes and you can watch them by themselves fine, you do see this nice flow between a lot of them, which is nice. And in addition to being sort of told that he's become more assertive and was able to convince all but his brother to sort of come over to the new Changeling Hive side, we do see Thorax finally sort of showing some of that new assertiveness that he's gained towards Starlight and Trixie, and sort of standing up for himself and standing up to his friends, especially as the episode goes on and Starlight's plan sort of hits the fan, so to speak. We do see him, like, the one scene where she's like, yes, you're coming with me, you started this whole, you caused this whole situation. And it was nice actually seeing that in his character, in addition, instead of just being told about what happened off screen in between this and the last episode. It was nice seeing also Trixie. Obviously, she's being Trixie throughout this episode, but it was nice seeing her showing helping a little bit in the Mulwer fight as well. They're throwing the smoke bombs at him, as well as trying to teleport them away to safety in the beginning, even if she did fail at that. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but this episode was really a nice way of kind of showing the Hive themselves as a group the importance of kind of not completely changing who you are or forgetting your roots, or giving up defending yourself. They pretty much wound up in the end mirroring Thorax's own lack of assertiveness there. So when Pharynx kind of does transform, hopefully they have a nice little more balance between being, friendly and peaceful, but also kind of being assertive when you need to, especially as Thorax continues to improve upon that. I really did like the new look for Pharynx, and he has kind of like the same antlers as Thorax. I guess maybe he's like the Luna to Thorax's Celestia now.
Yeah, they actually have a lot of similarities, similar dynamics. It's still totally different, but it is very much.
None of the other changes have like those big kind of brown antlers like Thorax had, and so Pharynx has those same. They're a lot smaller, but he does have those same things, which none of the other changelings really do have. They all have some antlers or horns or whatever, but they're the same color as their skin. They don't stick out as much like that. interesting to see if they both kind of lead the hive, with Thorax kind of managing the hive itself, and Pharynx, managing like the defense and some other parts of the hive. So sort of like how Celestia and Luna split up duties. Oh, I missed her throwing a rock. That's good. Nice to see. She's her levitations is going well. Even Starlight's a little shocked there. I think an interesting thing about the episode is this is the first episode where none of the main six or the CMC appear at all. I mean, we've had a couple episodes now where none of the main six have appeared, but it's been focused on the CMC. But this episode has been completely focused on new characters. I mean, yeah, there's Trixie, but I mean, the new and more powerful Trixie. It didn't rely on any of those really old, core characters like the main six or the CMC to support the story. They didn't even appear at once at all, or Spike for that matter. It was just Thorax, Starlight, and Trixie, which was cool, and seeing that they can really hold an episode on their own. No, like I said, this is the first episode where the main six or the CMC haven't been involved. We've had episodes in the past, couple episodes now, where the main six haven't appeared, but those have been CMC focused episodes. But here, and of course CMC are sort of like another kind of core cast there. So not having an episode where not only do the main six or Spike not appear, but the main six also don't appear. But the CMC also don't appear. I think it's something pretty big for the show. So does anyone have anything else to mention about the characters or the characterization, or any characters that we might have missed in the discussion? If not, we can move on to the voice acting. What everyone think of the voice acting in the episode? I guess of note is Thorax's brother Pharynx was voiced by the same voice actor that voiced Bright Mac back in the
Bill Newton.
The Pear Butter episode, yeah.
So yeah, the only people, well, actually no, Ashley Ball did come in, has just a couple of background people.
I also did have Ellen Ray Hennessy also premiere in the voice a couple characters. The friend group, the whatever discussion group leader that they had there, and Changeling, she did voice a character in the last episode in the in Rarity's story. I forget which one, but she voiced one of those two characters in Rarity's story last week. It was nice having her continue to voice some other characters on the show as well, outside of that episode.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we have Ian Hanlon on the show as well as? I'm noticing.
Ian Hamlin, I forget what he voiced, but he's definitely been on the show before.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure on that.
Ooh, thunder. Wonderful. Oh, duh. Ian Hanlon voices Sunburst.
So he did kind of. We did get a little bit of Sunburst.
So there's a little Sunburst. Yeah, sure. I'm like, I knew I recognized that name, but I couldn't remember. I knew he's been in multiple episodes before. Yeah, he's voices Sunburst. Yeah, of course. Well, he's still in the season. Come on, fingers crossed. Hopefully he voices Sunburst at some point again. I've forgotten because it's been so long. I guess he was in the premiere of this season, but still, just barely. But yeah, the core trio of the episode, Kelly, Kyle, and Kathleen, the 3Ks, did a great job voicing Thorax, Trixie, and Starlight in the episode. Kathleen Borger continues to I just love her as Trixie, and just especially when she's sort of being sarcastic or messing with Starlight or pushing the blame onto Starlight frequently in the episode. It's really fun. Ah, so I see, Mr. Benz. The one that constantly says to not be a dick is the biggest dick himself.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny that.
Well, yeah, of course, Kathleen Boreas is also the voice of Chrysalis, of course. Do as I say, not as I dick. Moving on to humor in this episode. Of course, this one involving Starlight and Trixie, there's got to be some humor in it. So there was a good amount of humor in it. So what did everyone think about the humor in the episode?
This was actually fairly humorous in a lot of ways. Like I was mentioning, Trixie just making a lot of the humor is actually mainly coming from her, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. A lot of
Trixie, Trixie complaining how Starlight had teleport them all over Equestria, and even then they still had to walk. Trixie trying to desperately cast a teleport spell, and just by waving her nose and shouting, "Teleport spell, go!" Like, why do you keep doing that? It doesn't work that way.
I just loved how at the end of that opening of the episode there, as they're getting dragged away in the bag, you hear Trixie say, "Did I save us?" It's just a great line delivery there on that.
This Trixie boasting that not only is she great and powerful, but unscarable, and then totally freaks out when Pharynx dive bombs her.
Oh yeah, she still has that very, very self-centered nature.
There's even a couple of moments with Starlight as well, especially when she was interacting with Pharynx. Like, I know when we first met it didn't go so well. I put you in a bag. I thought it went great.
And like I mentioned before, when you get Trixie telling Starlight her big convoluted plan, and Starlight just kind of rolls her eyes and walks away, and Trixie just keeps talking and talking until she finally notices that Starlight isn't there anymore.
Starlight just kind of runs off after telling Trixie to go get Pharynx, and like Trixie's like, how am I supposed to find him? And then just some random nobody just passing by, like, I just saw Pharynx.
I think my favorite line, and of course, this episode is full of Trixie kind of getting down on Starlight and kind of having these backhanded insults and messing with her and stuff. But I think my favorite line is in the episode was when Starlight actually got a little bit of Trixie when she's talking, when they're trying to convince Pharynx and talking about how they used to be, before they were formed and stuff, and she just says, "But now Trixie has come to terms with being second best," and just Trixie just gets this blank stare at her face on that. It's so great.
And Pharynx's response, "Wow, so you're both losers." One of my favorite lines is just kind of when Thorax goes to find Pharynx and confront the mall wharf. Starlight's like, "I'm coming with you," and then Thorax just says, "Well, of course you are. This is all your fault."
And then Trixie tries to get out of it, and Thorax is like, "No, you're coming too." She's like, "Oh."
It's like one of the few times like Thorax is just like not taking any shit from anyone. Yeah. And he's actually putting his hoof down and like being assertive and like
being a leader. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of my favorite lines, like right there.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, everyone's yelling and arguing and stuff, and the one guy's like, "My soup's too hot. My spoon is too big."
At least easy cool down and that problem corrected itself.
Yeah, that was great. Wow, the feelings forum really does work. I really like too how the leader of the feelings forum at the very end just finally has had enough of this shit and is like, "That's it, feelings forum is over." Just totally loses her cool. She would get along really well with what's her name? Fluttershy's friend. Treehugger, yeah.
Treehugger? Yeah. I remember that little thing where like the one changeling with the natural green colors, like some days she feels like she wants to be blue and other days she wants to be purple, and then she's like reminded, well, you can be any color you want, but then I'm living a lie.
That changeling's going through some serious issues right there.
Speaking of colors and all that, just one of the things is Pharynx just being a grumpy jerk because just dumping black paint on the other fellow changelings.
Trying to turn them back. That's Pharynx there represents some of the fans' responses to the new changeling look.
I also kind of, this is more of a meta thing, but I kind of was laughing when during the episode they kept referring to Pharynx as you-know-who, and I'm like thinking, since when did we get into Harry Potter here?
Don't say his name. Yeah, Starlight's whole big epic speech that she's giving, and yeah, just fades and no one came along. Anything else for humor that anyone wants to point out? In terms of the visuals, a couple things I do really like. I never really disliked the Changeling's new look. I thought it was fine. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I really do like Pharynx's look with the kind of the dark, keeping the slightly darker color, not quite as eye gougingly bright as some of the other Changelings are. I think he looks really cool. Again, much like Luna to Thorax's Celestia there in terms of the color difference. But I really do like that kind of dark bluish green coat that he has, and those big red, like blood red wings look really cool. And the red devil horns. Yeah, Trixie's has some just great reactions, and Starlight as well to some of her reactions to Trixie. The reactions that they have whenever they're together are so great. And yeah, the one that I did have written down here was that the one that Radio Dog just linked, that maybe face, that little lean that she does before she says it, and like maybe, and that mouth, the mouth that they have her on there is great. Yeah, poor Starlight. She definitely does not wear the pants in this relationship. Well, that image can't be taken out of the context.
I saw a similar thing here. I'm gonna have to look it up real fast. Let me see if I can look it up here real.
Yeah, you'll have to find one that isn't WebM. That's a GIF or it won't embed.
Yeah.
But yeah, Trixie and Starlight, just again, their interaction was just so hilarious throughout this episode and so enjoyable, and a lot of that is the animation and the reactions that they have to each other. There's also one where Trixie is kind of, I forget what it is. I think she's looking up at Thorax. It's the same expression that she's used once before, but it's so great. She gets those really wide eyes, like she has in that image there when she's hiding behind Starlight. Yeah, there it is. Were you able to find it, Mr. Ben?
Yeah, it's I'm just, my browser's just being really slow here.
Oh, okay.
Here it is.
Yeah, you
I
can
just
go ahead.
as soon as I thought this, I just started laughing out loud.
And yeah, it is nice seeing the in regards to the change, that overview shot of the Changeling Kingdom there, how much green has blossomed now around there. Because of course, when we last really saw the kingdom back in the season 6 finale, that was all just a barren kind of wasteland there. And now we can see some trees and some leaves and green grass and stuff. So it's cool to see, like, not only the hive itself and the changelings changing, but also the area surrounding the hive changing. Yeah, there we go. That gives better. It's when she makes that little oh. That's I love that little part. And then she's like, yeah, slowly just kind of slinks away behind Starlight there. And, kind of then eventually just disappears off frame. All you can see is her hat for a few frames there. And that's great. Anything else for humor or animation that anyone wants to bring up before we move on?
No, not really.
Oops. Oh yeah, that picture. Even the Changeling ship Starlight and Trixie. What are they standing over? Looks like they just
radioactive waste.
Looks like they're having a party and they just kind of been puking on the floor.
They apparently had way too much to drink.
just a normal night for Starlight and Trixie. Okay, so let's move on to the music in the episode and the score. Not anywhere near as much to talk about as we did last week, but there is a few things that we can discuss here for the episode. We did get a lot of returning leitmotifs, which is nice for an episode based around a lot of continuity, like this one does. With Trixie being back, we get a couple drops of her classic accordion leitmotif that she's kind of had with her since she first was in the series all those years ago, and she's kept that with her. So we hear that a few times for her. We of course hear all of Thorax's themes. He has a couple different ones for him, as well as the hive itself, that we first heard for him all back in season 6's The Times They Are a Changeling, and we heard some of them in the season 6 finale, and we heard them again for him back in Triple Threat just a few episodes ago. So we still hear those leitmotifs following him in this episode. We do hear the actual the classic evil changeling theme a little bit when we first are introduced to Thorax's brother in the episode. We hear that a little bit. That was all the way from the season 2 finale. And for the transformation sequence, we do get the same transformation score for Pharynx as the rest of the Hive got in the season 6 finale as well. So let's see, I'll go through a couple of these here. I think this one is the one that has the changeling theme in it. Let me see. This is from the beginning of the episode here. A little bit of little bit of stuff for Trixie there. A little bit of oboe and glockenspiel for the rest of this opening part here for Trixie and Starlight's dialogue before they start going to the Changeling Hive. And there's Trixie's leitmotif here. That appears about, I think, 2 times in the episode. Wasn't that one? It might be the next one where we hear the Changeling theme then. But yeah, that one we heard one of 2 appearances of Trixie's accordion leitmotif in the episode. Oh, there it is. Right at the beginning of right at the beginning of that track there, we hear that as Pharynx is kind of bringing them into the Changeling Hive there with the bag. So we get a little bit of that kind of old villainous Changeling leitmotif from the season 2 finale, and we've heard that again in the season 6 finale, and for Chrysalis back in the season 5 finale as well. Throughout it for the old Changelings there. Let's see. Going forward, here's the track from Thorax's flashback to their childhood. Can't remember if there's anything in here or not. There it is. See. That's that there would be Thorax's violin and clarinet leitmotif. One of the 2 leitmotifs that he has. That's like his personal one. The other one he has is kind of like his and the Changeling Hives. So again, that one was introduced back in the times they are Changeling back in season 6 and has followed him in all of his appearances, all of his episodes that he's had major part in, including Triple Threat, where it also made a premiere, where it also made an appearance. So next we get to Starlight's speech, so we get this like really intimidating and empowering march tune here for Starlight. And in the second part of it, it morphs and starts blending in some of the Changeling's theme, leitmotif as well, into this kind of march format. And we'll hear this Changeling theme later in the episode as well. But here it's woven really nicely into Starlight's march that she has here. So we start with the march here. And now here we're going to start working in that Changeling motif. We'll hear that later in the episode as well. But I like how William Anderson kind of worked in that motif there. Into that march as she's giving this really rousing speech to the Changelings there. From there, we get to the battle track, and I like this battle track. It's a really nice piece of battle score here with some different parts in it as the rest of the Changelings come in and help, and as the battle progresses for it. Has some nice horns in it. And now, that little thing right there, you hear that little fanfare there, that's the rest of the Changeling Hive appearing to help fight in the battle. And you'll recognize that as also the Changeling and Thorax leitmotif that we just heard in the speech, but obviously in a different kind of fanfare sort of way. And we'll hear that again in the next track here. But again, nicely weaving that theme into the song. To the big end of the battle there. And now we get to the last track here, which is Pharynx's transformation. Before I do that, I do want to play the track from one of the tracks from the end of the season 6 finale. This is the track from that episode at the very end, when Thorax does his transformation and is able to fight off Chrysalis there, and then the rest of the hive also does the transformation. And you'll notice these, recognize some of these themes, and you'll recognize it again when I play the last track from this episode. So this is Share the Love. So this is Share the Love from the season 6 finale. And you'll notice there's that theme again, that Changeling leitmotif. Just wait until this gets to the transformation time. Gotta get through some of Chrysalis's score here first. Here we go. This is another one of Thorax's themes here. A little soft piano theme that Thorax gets at the end there. So, if we play the final track from this week's episode here, you should notice at the beginning, I believe, that piano tune before we get into that transformation music again. Get through some of the dialogue here first. I believe it's here. Almost. Here it is. Then that's going to go right into that transformation score, the same score from the season 6 finale there. So yeah, that ends the score for this episode. I just really like that, again, that continuity that not only the show's writing has, but also the show's music has. And when we're going through these similar situations or scenarios or locations or characters here, and having that consistent music and score behind each of these scenes to tie it together. So we get that same exact transformation score here for Pharynx that we got for the rest of the Changelings and Thorax in season 6, as well as their own little leitmotifs and stuff that are brought back for the Hive, as well as they appear throughout the episode. So it's something that I really enjoy listening for and going back and sort of taking some time and figuring out where have we heard this before, where have we heard that before, and kind of showing that some of the thought process that goes into actually scoring this, and it's just not like mindless score to match what's going on screen or just reusing a track just to save time. Actually kind of having some meaning and thought process behind the score, which is fun to explore and kind of reverse engineer, because it's something you might notice subconsciously as you're watching the episode there. So again, not as much to talk about, but there is, in terms of amount compared to like last week, but still some nice uses that are fun to talk about for it. Moving on, what does everyone think about the episode's theme and moral?
There's about 3 of them here. First off is that you should not give up on friends and family, even if they're difficult or hard to reason with. The second is being concerned with safety and the welfare of your friends is fine and laudable, but so long as you're not overly aggressive nor overbearing while doing it. And then finally, pacifism is not the same as being helplessness. Choosing to become peaceful does not mean you have to be a pushover.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest and most important like life lesson that you can get out of this episode. There is that final one there, and it's not something that's really explicitly said, but it's really something that's shown throughout this episode about this kind of balance that you really have to have in life and maybe even as a civilization. And it's shown very well, I think, in this episode. It's a very, very mature kind of subject and to be discussing. Oh, that was a close lightning strike. Very kind of mature discussion to be had, but it's never really smeared in your face either. The episode does a nice job of kind of showing it and not just telling it at the end. So, favorite parts of the episode?
Like I mentioned, just Thorax kind of getting, that assertive part and just telling Starlight, no, you're coming along with us.
Of course you are. Favorite parts? I don't know. I guess the banter between Trixie and Starlight throughout the episode was really, really fun and well, it continues to be well done and enjoyable to watch. Yeah, like I said, the story in the episode itself is fine. I think maybe they could have gone about a couple things different ways that might have made it more interesting. Like, for instance, it would have been cool if maybe you could keep the same kind of problem, but instead of having Starlight sort of just cause more problems, maybe she could be the one that's actually realizes sort of be the third party here and realize what's going on and realize that, he might actually have a point, versus Thorax, and maybe having to try and convince Thorax of that. I don't know, be more of a mediator. It might have made it a little bit better, but yeah, definitely Trixie and Starlight's hijinks there were fun. But see, I don't really think he was ever against, like, changing forms. So I'm okay with him, like, transforming in the end, if that's where they're going with the story. Because it was more about him accepting his place in the hive. The hive is changing around him, and he didn't like the changes that were happening and didn't like how they were kind of leaving themselves vulnerable, so he didn't want to be a part of that new hive. But the hive has kind of seen the errors of their ways, accepted him, and accepted his viewpoint, and taken his viewpoint to heart, now that he feels, which allows him to feel more a part of the hive again, which makes sense why he would then transform to signify his inclusion back into the hive there. I don't think having the episode structured how it was, and how it ended how it was, and having him not transform would make any sense. Like I said before, I think it would have been interesting if the episode went a different route and kind of went the route of maybe he wasn't redeemable, or he whether or not he had a point, he didn't, he didn't want to go back in the hive. Like they kind of seemed like they were going in the middle, where it seemed like the lesson was going to be like, well, sometimes some people are set in their ways and you won't be able to change them. For him, then that would be different. But being that they didn't go that route, they kind of made his points be more understandable and more relatable, and more importantly, more true. Like, everything he was saying and the problems he had with the new hive were true problems, and they acknowledged that in the end. Since they went that route, I think his transformation makes sense, and it would have been weird if he didn't transform. Better hurry up and try to finish this before my power goes out.
Why? Is it storm where you are? What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's see. Overall feelings, final thoughts on the episode?
Was still a good episode, all said and done.
It was enjoyable, if only just for Starlight and Trixie. Now come on, just give me some sunburst. I'll be good.
Well, what episode was this? This was what, number
17. We're
17.
getting close. We're getting close. I can't believe when I saw that this week, and I'm like, oh, here comes another episode, and then I saw it was episode 17. I had to do a double take because I didn't realize we were that far into the season already. Like, I didn't realize that we've gone through that many episodes already after the hiatus.
Yeah, we still got 9 more to go too.
It doesn't feel like we've been through that much.
Well, technically 8, because from what I understand, the final 2 episodes are a 2-parter, and they're obviously going to air
more than likely, yeah.
Yeah. So technically 8 more to go. Hopefully we'll see Sunburst, I should say.
Starburst, yes, more Starburst, please.
Yes, more Starburst. I can't ship those 2 enough.
That's the best ship name of all of the ship names. I guess overall this episode, I thought it was enjoyable. I thought maybe there's some things that they could have done better, especially in relating to Starlight's character, and maybe making the episode be a little bit different for her, or a little bit more building of her character. Because really, in the end here, Starlight really didn't learn anything. I mean, maybe she's kind of learned some more lessons about not being impulsive, but I mean, she's already kind of gone through that stuff before. So I mean, obviously, most of the lessons here were for Thorax and the Hive, and for it. But being it's focused a lot on Starlight too, I'd like to see more development for her and in future episodes. So that would be really my only gripe with it, was just really the lack of more development for Starlight. But it was fun seeing more of her and Trixie and Thorax as well. And again, I love the continuity. I love how we're having this kind of overarching story and all these different stories from different characters all interacting and progressing throughout the season, from last season and from the last season finale. Is really cool. But yeah, I think for an episode, and for Kevin Lipton's second episode, I think it was pretty solid. Definitely, I think he definitely wrote Trixie and Starlight really well.
You know, I just thought of another thing for humor that I can't believe I forgot that was also really funny. Mm-hmm. That huge speech that Starlight gives, like, right at the very, near the end, where she's, like, trying to work up the changelings, and then, like, it just kind of smash cuts to Starlight, Trixie, and Thorax just kind of out, just the 3 of them out in the middle of nowhere, and Trixie's like, "That was a great speech you gave. Too bad it didn't work."
Yeah, I had mentioned that in the humor section for it, but yeah, that was great. That was great though.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't. I must not have been listening. I apologize.
That's okay. It's worth mentioning. That's on me. It's worth mentioning again.
Yeah,
I loved that joke. So, that about brings us to the end of this week's episode of Equine Episode Examination. So, thank you all for participating this week in that. Hopefully, the stream was going well for everyone. You should be hopefully noticing a lot less lag in between when you type something in chat and when it appears in the stream. Hopefully, because YouTube sort of updated their systems to support a very low latency mode. So hopefully everything's been going all right with the stream for everyone, with the exception of a couple hiccups on my end in the middle there. There was probably some lag in the middle just because I had to restart the stream there really quick. But hopefully that went over pretty well, so we can do stuff like this and maybe stuff like the Jackbox thing again with less lag hopefully this time. So, but thanks so much for joining us for Equine Episode Examination this week. Make sure, of course, to join us this weekend when we'll be announcing, we'll be watching the new MLP episode. Daring Done this weekend at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so make sure to stop on by and live chat that with us. We'll, of course, also be announcing what we'll be doing on the next CQ Riffs at that time as well, sometime during the day there, if we remember. And, of course, make sure you join us next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for our next AAA episode, where we'll be discussing Daring Done? ? So, obviously, a Daring Do episode. I mean, I don't think that's really a spoiler if you know the title. And, yeah, if you've seen it, keep your trap shut. Even in the spoiler chat, don't post anything there. That's technically a leak, but yeah, we'll be discussing that next Tuesday there. So make sure you join us for that. With that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for Equine Episode Examination, and we will see you on next Tuesday. Bye-bye, everyone.
See ya!